Get your hands where I can see them. You don't belong here. The man on the sidewalk doesn't move fast. He doesn't argue. He doesn't run. He simply looks up, slowly, calmly, from the folding chair he's been sitting in for the last 40 minutes. His coat is worn at the elbows. His boots are scuffed so bad the left sole has started to separate. He has a paper cup of gas station coffee resting on the concrete beside him, and a manila folder across his lap. He looks to anyone passing by on a Tuesday morning in downtown Hargrove, Ohio, like a man who has nowhere to be. That is what Officer Dale Pruitt sees. That is the only thing Officer Dale Pruitt bothers to see. "Sir, I said hands, now!" The man sets the manila folder down on top of the cup, carefully, like the papers inside are worth protecting. Then he raises his hands, not in surrender, but with a kind of measured patience that belongs to someone who has done the math on this moment and already knows how it ends. His name is Raymond Elias Cole, and in 11 hours Officer Dale Pruitt will wish, with every fiber of his being, that he had kept driving. If this story stopped you mid-scroll, hit subscribe and drop your city in the comments. Because what happened to Raymond Cole happened in broad daylight, in front of witnesses, on property he legally owned, and the city tried to bury it for 14 months. Stay with me. Every detail matters. Hargrove, Ohio is not a famous city. It doesn't have a skyline worth photographing. It doesn't make lists. It sits in the flat middle of the state, 40 minutes from Columbus, with a downtown strip that's been half renovated for 12 years. New coffee shops beside boarded-up pawn shops, fresh paint on old wounds. The building at 412 Clement Street is one of the older ones. 4 stories. Beige brick that's closer to grey now, streaked dark where the gutters overflow. The ground floor used to be a printing business, then a check-cashing place, then nothing. The upper floors are apartments, 12 units, most occupied. There's a laundromat on the corner of the same block, a tax prep office, and a bail bondsman with a neon sign that buzzes when the wind blows north. It is not a glamorous building, but it is Raymond's building. Has been for 11 years. Raymond Cole is 53 years old. He was born in Hargrove, raised in the East Side housing projects, and left at 18 on a partial academic scholarship to study civil engineering at Ohio State. He spent his 20s working for a structural consulting firm in Cincinnati. His 30s building contacts, buying distressed properties, rehabbing them with his own hands on weekends, and selling them at a margin that let him buy 2 more. By 45, he owned 7 properties across Franklin and Licking counties. By 50, he had consolidated down to 3. The ones he believed in. The ones he wanted to hold. 412 Clement was the first. The one he bought when no bank would give him a loan and he had to bring in a private investor at brutal terms. The one he spent 8 months renovating himself, patching drywall at 11 p.m. on Thursdays, replacing plumbing on Saturdays. The one he still visits every week. Checks the hallways. Or checks the boiler. Sits outside sometimes in the morning, just to think. He doesn't dress up for these visits. Why would he? He's not performing for anyone. He's checking on his building. Officer Dale Pruitt has worked the downtown Hargrove beat for 9 years. He is 38, broad-shouldered, with the confidence that accumulates in a man who has never once been wrong about his first impression of another person. Not in his own mind, anyway. He drives a cruiser with a cracked left fog light that maintenance has been ignoring for 6 weeks. He knows the downtown block by block. He knows who belongs and who doesn't. Or so he believes. He spots Raymond at 8:47 a.m. on a Thursday in March. The air is 31 degrees and there's a skin of old ice on the sidewalk. Raymond is sitting in his folding camping chair, the one he keeps in the back of his GMC parked half a block away, with his coffee and his folder and his coat that has seen better days. Pruitt slows the cruiser. He looks. He makes a decision in under 4 seconds. He pulls over. Pruitt climbs out of the cruiser and doesn't hurry. His hand rests near his belt with the easy authority of a man who never has to announce himself twice. "Morning," he says. Not warmly. Raymond looks up. Morning. You been here long? About 40 minutes. Pruitt glances at the building behind Raymond, then back at Raymond. He takes in the coat, the boots, the gas station cup, the folder that looks like it came out of someone's recycling. You got somewhere to be? Raymond holds Pruitt's gaze. I'm already somewhere. A pause. Pruitt doesn't like that answer. It's too calm, too self-contained. In his experience, the 9 years of experience he trusts completely, men sitting on folding chairs outside commercial buildings in 31-degree weather, with nowhere to be and nothing to show for themselves, don't get to sound that self-contained. You live around here? I own this building. Pruitt actually smiles. It's not a kind smile. It's the smile of a man who has heard every version of this before. Every excuse, every elaborate story, every dignity-saving lie. Sure you do, he says. Let me see some ID. Raymond reaches slowly into the inside pocket of his coat and produces his wallet. He hands over his driver's license. Pruitt takes it, reads it again. Raymond Elias Cole, a Hargrove address, not this block, but not far. Nothing on the card that says owner. Nothing on the card that says anything except a man's name and face and expiration date. Pruitt hands it back. Sir, I'm going to need you to move along. We've had complaints about this block, loitering, panhandling. I don't want any trouble. I'm not panhandling, Raymond says. I own this building. I come here every week. Do you have documentation? Raymond looks at him for a moment. Then he opens the manila folder across his lap. Inside are papers. Quite a few papers, actually. Maintenance logs, utility correspondence, lease renewal schedules. He shuffles toward the back of the stack and produces a single document. Offers it up. Pruitt doesn't take it. He barely glances at it. Sir, I'm not here to review paperwork on a sidewalk. I need you to gather your things and move on. There are resources available if you need somewhere warm. I don't need resources. Raymond's voice stays level. I need you to hear what I'm telling you. By now, the interaction has pulled an audience. A woman from the tax prep office is standing in her doorway with a coffee mug. A man walking his dog has slowed to a stop. 2 young women waiting for the bus across the street are watching in silence. Pruitt straightens. He's not going to be challenged on a public sidewalk by a man in a worn-out coat. Last time. Gather your things and move along, or I'm going to detain you for obstruction and loitering. Obstruction? Raymond repeats. Of what? Sir, there's no one here. I'm sitting in a folding chair on a public sidewalk in front of a building I own, drinking coffee. Pruitt steps forward. Hands behind your back. The woman in the tax prep doorway says, out loud, Sir, he told you he owns it. Pruitt doesn't look at her. He takes the handcuffs from his belt. Raymond Cole stands. He does not resist. He does not argue anymore. He places his hands behind his back with the careful, contained dignity of a man who knows that this moment, this specific, unjust, freezing cold moment, is going to matter. He can feel it in the way you feel weather changing. Something atmospheric, something that cannot be undone. The handcuffs click. 2 of the bystanders have their phones out now. The woman across the street with the dog says to the bus stop women, Are you seeing this? One of them is already filming. Pruitt guides Raymond to the cruiser. The manila folder is left behind on the folding chair. The coffee tips over, but Raymond doesn't look back. The squad car pulls away from the curb at 8:54 a.m. At the Hargrove Police Department's 3rd District Station, Raymond is processed for loitering, a misdemeanor, and obstruction. He is placed in a holding cell. He is given a phone call at 9:23 a.m. He uses it to call his attorney. Her name is Vivian Park. She is very, very good at her job. What Officer Dale Pruitt did not know, what he had decided in 4 seconds that he did not need to know, was that the man he put in handcuffs on a public sidewalk in front of 2 phone cameras was not homeless, was not loitering, was not without resources. Raymond Elias Cole is the sole owner of 412 Clement Street, recorded in Franklin County property records under his name since 2013. The building is assessed at $1.1 million. It generates on average $14,200 per month in rental income. Raymond pays his property taxes quarterly, on time, every single time. He has never missed a payment. He has never received a code violation. The building passed its last inspection with 0 deficiencies. The manila folder that Pruitt declined to look at? It contained a copy of the deed, along with 12 months of maintenance logs, a signed lease renewal for Unit 3B, and correspondence with an HVAC contractor. Raymond was planning to meet that morning, at the building, that he owns. But here is what made the story catch fire. What took it from a police report to a federal lawsuit to a $1.4 million settlement. 3 people filmed it. The young woman at the bus stop captured 4 minutes and 12 seconds from across the street, clear enough to read the expression on Pruitt's face when Raymond offered him the document. The dog walker got a shorter clip, 40 seconds, but caught the exact moment the handcuffs went on. And inside the tax prep office, a recently installed security camera had been pointed at the front window for insurance purposes and captured the entire interaction in audio-enabled HD from a diagonal angle that showed both men's faces throughout. And Vivian Park had the footage within 2 hours. By noon, she had filed a formal complaint with the Hargrove Police Department, copied to the city attorney's office, attached to an 8-page letter that opened with the phrase, "My client, Mr. Raymond E. Cole, was arrested this morning on property he has owned for 11 years. By 3 p.m., one of the bus stop videos was on Twitter. By 6 p.m., it had 340,000 views. By 9 p.m., Raymond Cole's name was trending in Ohio. In a conference room on the 4th floor of Hargrove City Hall, the city attorney, a deputy mayor, and 2 police department liaisons were watching the footage on a laptop and not saying anything for a very long time. The internal review began the following Monday. Pruitt was placed on administrative leave, with pay, pending investigation. The department released a 2-sentence statement that described the incident as under review and expressed a commitment to transparency. It was the kind of statement that commits to nothing while appearing to commit to everything. Raymond Cole said nothing to the media. He let Vivian Park speak. She was specific, methodical, and devastating. Officer Pruitt was shown documentation. She said at a press conference 10 days after the arrest. He was told clearly by multiple witnesses that my client owned the building. He chose not to verify that information before making an arrest. That is not a mistake. That is a pattern of assumption. She paused for exactly 2 seconds. And we intend to prove exactly which assumptions were made and why. The lawsuit was filed 22 days after the arrest. It named Officer Pruitt, the Hargrove Police Department, and the City of Hargrove as defendants. It alleged false arrest, racial discrimination under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, and deliberate indifference by department leadership to a documented pattern of racially disparate enforcement on the downtown beat. That last part, the pattern, was the part that made the city's lawyers go quiet. Because Vivian Park had done something extraordinary in the 3 weeks between the arrest and the filing, she had filed public records requests for 5 years of arrest data on the downtown Hargrove beat, the exact stretch of Clement Street, and the 4 surrounding blocks. She had cross-referenced those records with demographics. She had found that in a commercial district where black residents accounted for 31% of foot traffic by city count, and they accounted for 79% of loitering and vagrancy citations. She had a statistician ready to testify. She had 3 other individuals who had been cited on that same block in similar circumstances with similar outcomes. She had everything. The city tried, at first, to fight it. Their initial position was that Pruitt had acted within his discretion, that he could not have been expected to verify property ownership on a public sidewalk, and that the arrest, while perhaps unfortunate, did not rise to the level of a civil rights violation. Vivian Park responded by deposing Officer Pruitt for 6 hours. In that deposition, under oath, Pruitt was asked, "When Mr. Cole attempted to show you documentation, why did you not review it?" His answer, and his attorneys would later describe this as a significant problem, was, "I didn't think it was going to be legitimate." The follow-up question, "What made you think it wasn't going to be legitimate?" Pruitt paused for 14 seconds. 14 seconds that were transcribed into the court record and would eventually appear in news coverage across the country. He said, "His appearance." 2 words. The deposition continued for another 4 hours after that. But those 2 words were the end of the case. Everyone in that room knew it, including Pruitt's attorneys. Within 48 hours, the city's legal team began settlement negotiations. They opened at $200,000. Vivian Park said no. They came back at $600,000. She said no. They asked what her client wanted. She told them. Raymond Cole wanted 4 things: a financial settlement that reflected the actual harm and the pattern, a formal public apology from the police chief, not a PR statement, a public apology read aloud at a press conference, a mandatory review of arrest data on the downtown beat going back 5 years with results published to the public, and a department-wide training overhaul developed in consultation with civil rights organizations. The city negotiated on the dollar figure. They accepted the other 3 conditions within a week. The settlement was finalized at $1.4 million. Officer Dale Pruitt was not terminated as part of the settlement. The city's attorneys structured it to avoid that admission of wrongdoing. But 6 weeks after the settlement was announced, Pruitt resigned from the Hargrove Police Department, and he submitted his resignation on a Friday afternoon. There was no statement, no press release. His name simply appeared in the department's weekly personnel update, under the column marked Separations. The police chief's public apology took place on the steps of Hargrove City Hall on a Thursday morning in November, 8 months after Raymond Cole had been handcuffed in front of his own building. It was cold that morning, 34 degrees. A small crowd had gathered, including journalists, community members, and several of Raymond's tenants from 412 Clement. Raymond stood to the side while the chief spoke. He was wearing a different coat this time, charcoal grey, well-fitted, a coat that matched the occasion, and also matched who Raymond Cole had always been, whether anyone bothered to look or not. When the chief finished, a reporter called out to Raymond, "Mr. Cole, how do you feel?" Raymond was quiet for a moment. He looked back at the building across the square. You couldn't see 412 Clement from the steps of City Hall, but Raymond looked in that direction anyway. Then he said, "I feel like I own a building." He walked off the steps and didn't take any more questions. The arrest of Raymond Cole lasted less than 4 hours. The handcuffs were on for less than 90 seconds. But what followed? The lawsuit, the data audit, the settlement, the mandatory training, reshaped how Hargrove's police department documented and reviewed patrol enforcement for years afterward. The 5-year data audit alone, when published, prompted the City Council to form an independent oversight committee that had been stalled in committee for 3 years, and it passed unanimously 11 days after the audit went public. None of that happens without Raymond Cole sitting calmly in a folding chair on a 31-degree morning, refusing to move, holding a manila folder full of documents that a man in a uniform decided, in 4 seconds, weren't worth looking at. Vivian Park still keeps a copy of the 2-word deposition answer framed in her office. His appearance. The city of Hargrove paid $1.4 million to learn what Raymond Cole has known his entire life. That dignity is not something you can see in a coat or a pair of boots. That ownership does not require a performance. That calm, in the face of power wielded carelessly, is not weakness. It is evidence. One final thing. The HVAC contractor Raymond was supposed to meet the morning of the arrest. The man he sat outside waiting for, with his coffee and his folder, came by the building 2 days later when Raymond finally made it back. They walked the mechanical room together. Raymond showed him where the heat exchanger was failing. They talked numbers. Raymond approved the repair. It cost $3,800. He paid it the same week. Because that's what you do when you own the building. You take care of it. $1.4 million. One data audit. One police department, finally accountable. And one man who never once raised his voice. Some people wear their power like a costume, loud and unmistakable. Raymond Cole wore his like a coat, quiet, earned, and weatherproof.